Hello and welcome to another tutorial by Happy Cloud Solutions. Today we'll be looking at understanding Docker as a beginner, and we will conclude with a simple demo for beginners. So if you've been following with the DevOps series, you would know that we have gone through all these DevOps tools in various videos. We've gone through Jira, Git, Gradle, Selenium, Jenkins, and now we are at Docker. So today, the aim is to understand what Docker is, to understand its importance, and to actually, create our first Docker image from a Docker file and push it to a central Docker hub. Okay. So at the end of this DevOps series, there's going to be a DevOps project that will include how to use all these tools in one project. So let's continue. So now, what is Docker? Docker, simply put, is a software platform that packages software into containers. So Docker images are read-only templates that contain instructions for creating a container. So basically, a Docker image is a snapshot or blueprint of the libraries and dependencies required inside a container for an application to run. So you're going to see in this demo that we are going to create a Docker file for an application. We're going to build an image using the Docker file, and then we're going to run the Docker container. Okay. So now, what are the importance of using Docker? Why do people use Docker? Why are people, why is Docker now the talk of the town these days? So basically, one is its efficiency. Docker allows developers to work with smaller and more focused containers, reducing the overhead associated with the traditional virtual machines. All right. And then we go to security. Docker provides security by ensuring that containers run applications in isolation from one another. All right. And then there's now scalability. So if the demand for your app, increases, you can quickly generate new containers. And then there's also portability. Portability is one of Docker's greatest advantages. All right. All major cloud computing providers, including AWS, GCP, they have adopted Docker's accessibility and added support over the past few years. So Docker containers can run in an Amazon EC2 or Google Compute Engine instance, Rackspace servers, VirtualBox, and VirtualBox supports Docker. All right. So a container that is running on Amazon EC2 can easily be transferred between environments such as VirtualBox to achieve the same consistency and functionality. So Docker is also compatible with many configuration managers such as Puppet, Chef, and so on and so forth. Enough with the plenty talk. Let's get right into the demonstration. Okay. So now for this demo, what I would need from you are two things. So let me bring that up. I'm going to need you to sign up to the Docker Hub if you haven't. So you basically go to hub.docker.com and then you sign up for it if you haven't signed up. If you signed up, then you have to sign in, okay? And then these are my repositories, the various repositories I've created, but we'll get here shortly. So now the next thing I would need from you is you also need to download the Docker desktop. So this is the link. It's also provided in the comment section. You can download either for Windows or for Mac, whatever operating system. Even if it's Linux, you can also download Docker for your system. So now I believe that you have gone ahead to sign in into your Docker Hub or sign up if you haven't, registered, and then also downloaded Docker Desktop. So now that you've done that, let's go look at the application that we're going to Dockerize today. Okay. So if I go to my GitHub profile, let me go to my GitHub profile and just refresh this. So I have created a small, web application that we are going to Dockerize today. Okay, so this is it here. I have also opened it on Visual Studio Code. So let's do this. let me open it on Visual Studio Code. So this is GitHub desktop that makes it easy for me to work with GitHub on my desktop instead of using the command line. So this, yeah, this is it on Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to Dockerize this project that you're seeing here. As you can see, there's no Docker file here. So we're going to walk through this together. So now, what is important for you to know is for beginners especially, it is good to use IDEs like Visual Studio Code because it really like helps you to generate Docker files or do something with Docker. Instead of you to have to create it from scratch, you can actually use VS Code, and I'm going to show you to create a Docker file. So before we continue, let me actually run this um, project and then you see what it looks like before we begin Dockerization. So now we have this here. Let me show you what it looks like. I'll just go to my localhost 3000 because that's where it's running on. Okay. So this is what I'm going to Dockerize now. So I'm going to create a Docker file for this. I'm going to create an image for it, and then we are going to push it to Docker Hub. All right. So this is it. This is it. This is still on my local host. All right. So let's get to it. This is Visual Studio Code. So to begin, I'll just stop this. Okay, stopped. So to begin, we're going to create a Docker file. Like I said, Visual Studio Code makes it easy for you to create a Docker file, especially for beginners. So on your VS Code IDE, just click on View, and then you click on Command Palette. Then you see, if you just type Docker, it's going to bring up different options for you. It says Add Docker files to workspace. I'll click Yes. Okay, I'll select that option. So then it's going to ask you select application platform. Right now, this is a Node.js project, so I'll select that. Then it's going to ask you choose a package.json file. I'll just select this one. What pod do I want to run it on? It's going to run on 3000. So I'll just click on enter. It's now going to ask you, should we include a Docker Compose file for you? I'll just say yes. And then it begins to build. As you can see, these files have generated here. All right. So it's super easy to do this when you're using VS Code. So I'm just going to wait and come back when it's done. So right now it's on 5/6. I'm going to wait for it to be at 6/6 and then we continue with this. Hello, viewers. My name is Kachi. This is a short break just to urge and ask you to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel. This channel is used to bring educative videos that are relevant in the information technology world. We bring videos on web development, cloud computing, DevOps, and even artificial intelligence, AI. But the videos are not just limited to that. We also provide videos as they are relevant to the community. We ask that you support us through your likes and subscription. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you as part of our subscribers. Now, let's get back to business. So now the Docker files are done creating. These are all the Docker files that were generated. So now here is the Docker file, this one, that we're going to use to generate the Docker image. Okay, so what do all this line mean? So the first one is basically what enables us to create new images based on old ones. And then this basically just says that we are working on the production environment. Then line 3, which is the working directory, it defines the working directory for further Docker file instructions. And then line 4 is used to copy local files and folders to a Docker container. Then line 5 basically uses npm to install only on production dependencies. Then line 6, this is how the source code is copied. Line 7 is basically saying expose port 3000 because that's what we specified when we're creating the Docker file. And then we just down here at line 10 is basically npm start, which enables us to begin the application when it's created. So now another thing you want to take note of is that your Docker desktop, that's the application itself, this one, it should be up, like it should be started on your system. So with that said, and with that gotten out of the way, we'll start by building our first Docker image. And the command is docker build. Yes, you guessed it. And we'll just give it a name. So I'll just say my trees app because that's what the website is about, and then a full stop. And then press enter. So what it does now is it starts to build, and when it's done building, we'll move on to the next thing, which is to actually run this image that we've built. Okay. All right, so now our Docker image is done building. The next thing we want to do is to run the Docker image. And I'm sure you also guessed that. That would be Docker run, then hyphen DP. So basically, the hyphen D flag is used to run the new container in the background, and the hyphen P flag creates a mapping between the host port 3000 to the containers port 3000. So let's do that 3000, and I'll say my trees app. Guess that's the name I gave it, right? Just confirming that it's the same name, my trees app. Yep. Okay, so press enter. Want to do now is to go to localhost 3000 and see that that website or that application comes up. So let's do that. Let me go to localhost 3000. Localhost 3000. All right, so we've seen it's come up on port 3000. It's still loading. All right, so this is what we have here. Yep. So now we've successfully built an image from this. We've run the container. If I do docker ls, let me do docker container ls, click enter. You see that we have one that we just created now, my trees app, and it says that the status is up, and this came up about a minute ago. So now we've successfully done that. What's the next thing we want to do? Right now, we want to push this to Docker Hub. So before we do that, let's head over to Docker Hub, and then we're going to create a repository for this. Make it public. No need to make it private. Okay, create. So now we have our repository created. Just take note of this repository name. I'm going to copy it. Go back to VS Code. So before we continue, I'm just going to log into my Docker Hub from VS Code terminal. And this is basically how to do it. And put your username. So my username is Kachio. Click enter. So I have to provide my password. So I'm just going to enter my password and press enter. So it's authenticating. All right, so login succeeded. So now the next thing we want to do is to go ahead to tag our image and then push it to Docker Hub. So we're going to continue by tagging the Docker image and then pushing it to the Docker Hub. To do that, firstly, I'm going to identify the name of the image. And from my Docker desktop, I can see that the image name is this. So I'm just going to come back to Visual Studio Code. I want to give it a different tagging. So I'll just say Docker tag Catchy-o slash my trees app. So just confirming that that's the name here, my trees app. Okay. So now this is what's here, and what's the version? First version. So I have to put that also. So first version. And now I want to give it a different tagging. So what I'm going to do is I'll come back to Docker desktop here, ensure that I'm using the right name for the repo that was created. So I'll come back here and then paste it and then give it second version. So that's what I'm going to tag that as. All right, and then I'm going to press enter. So after doing that, the next thing you want to do is to run docker push, and then I'm going to put the tag that I just gave it, second version. All right. Now it begins to prepare and push your Docker image to Docker Hub. So this usually takes some time. As you can see here, it has to do 33.66 MB. This one has to do up to 121.5 MB. So it's going to take some time to, push. So hooray, we have our image pushed to Docker Hub. So now let's go back here, and if we refresh, we see that we have our first, push, which is the second version that we just created now. And congratulations, you've been able to push your first image to Docker Hub. Now, let's say a team member of yours needs to access this Docker image, needs to use it on their own system. How would they do that? So, to be able to do this, you need to give them first this repository name, and they also need to be able to pull the image from your repository. So if it's a private repository, it will be pulled differently from if it's a public repository. So this one is in public view. So right now I'm going to go back to VS Code, and I'm going to behave like your team member that is trying to access this. So to do that, I'm going to delete the existing image that is running locally on my system, and then I'm going to pull it from the Docker Hub. All right. So to do that, I'm just going to run Docker stop container ID. So I can know the container ID by going to my Docker desktop, clicking containers, taking this, and then put it here. So now our Docker container has stopped. The next thing we want to do is Docker RMI image name. So to get the image name, I'll just run Docker images. All right, so Docker RMI image name is Catchy-o slash my trees app. All right, so I'm supposed to put the version. Just because it's in use, I'm going to use the the force command to be able to delete it. All right. So it's good that we went through all these processes and saw all these errors, so you can understand how to read errors and also resolve it. So now you see it's untagged and then it's deleted. So first of all, here it said that there was no such image. That's because I missed out the tag. And then here it says that error response from daemon conflict, unable to remove repository because it's being used. So what I had to do was to put the false flag, which is identified by -f, and now we've been able to delete it. So now let's run Docker images again, and we see that it's gone, it's no more here. So now what we want to do is we want to pull the one that we have in Docker Hub. So to do that, you have to take note of the version that is here that you want to pull. I'm just going to also take this and copy. So let's do this. So Docker image pull and put that and then put the version. All right. So it says downloaded newer image for blah 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 my trees app second version. So if I do Docker images again, I can now see that it's come back, to my system. Initially, when we deleted it, it was no more there. But now, after we've pulled it from Docker Hub, now we see it. All right. So this is basically the basics of Docker. And this is more like the foundation, what you need to know to get started with Docker. When you have this in mind, every other thing will just fall in place. To learn more about Docker or other DevOps tools, you can reach out to us via the Contact Us form on our website. The link is provided on the screen, or you can send us an email using hcstutors at harpycloudsolutions.com. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let us continue doing what we're doing. See you in the next episode.